It's so funny bringing back up camp. It's so funny, like the camp experience as well, because we left. We met at Glen Meadows at 4:45 in the morning. When's the last time anyone woke up at 4 in the morning? Cool. Okay, we got military people, we got teachers, we got athletes, and we got teachers. Cool. Minus those, what's the last time anybody normal woke up at 4 a.m.? Nah, normal, you athlete children. So anyway, so that was already exhausting, and then we kind of get to camp, and I remember being like, okay, I love these students so much, but this is 6 days of this. And I remember being like, okay, countdown, night number 1, it's done. Oh wait, yeah, so 5 nights, 6 days. So knock that out. I'm like, okay, 4 more days. Because the first night, it was you would have thought that we were at like College Party USA. Seth and Aiden and the rest of the guys, they didn't hear it in our room, but I heard it because I was on that wall, sharing that wall with what was like the most intense frat party in the entire nation. And like, they were busting out these like beats on the wall, like, I was like, man, this is a good flow, we getting it. And I was like, but I'm trying to sleep, this isn't good. And so I went over there and I was like, guys, I just want to sleep. Like, I'm just trying to sleep. Could you not, like, those are good beats, but just not on the wall. And that's where I messed up, because what that meant for them was we can do every single thing ever, but play beats on this wall. And so it's 2 a.m, just like you think they're just killing each other, just slaughtering each other. I'm hearing kids jump from bunk bed to bunk bed. And I'm like, I want to sleep. I woke up, they don't have 4 a.m. I'm not in the military, please. So I remember like dragging my feet down the hallway and just getting a Sprite from the sponsors thing, because I was like, I deserve this. And then I opened the door again, and they're like, shh, and like ran to their bed, pretend you're asleep. And then like, I opened the door and I'm like, I straight up yelled, I'm not dumb. And then they didn't talk back, so that's when I was like, I guess I am. But anyway, so first night aside, we started getting in the rhythm. Camp was awesome. I'll tell you what, every single day that week, may it be from Glen Meadows or from Sunnyvale, the people we shared the cabin with, or from even Falls Creek workers, I got compliments every single day about our students at Falls Creek. And so if you guys could just give our students a round of applause. They were awesome, they were great. They weren't keeping me up till 2:30 in the morning. It was amazing. It was awesome. So, and another aspect that was so great about camp, we actually had a student come to faith in Jesus Christ this week. And I was hoping he could be here, not so I could like show him off and be like, hey, what's up, here he is. But like, I really wanted him to come hang out. He's in Dallas for the weekend. But I'll tell you what, it is so awesome. This specific student, very blunt, very to the point, very structured, like very intense. And it was awesome to see within his personality, see Christ and see that kind of like click. And for him, he went down to the front. They did a time of invitation at this Southern Baptist camp. They did a time of invitation. And so he walked down there and I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure I keep following his head down to the end down there. There's 6,000 people here. Okay, there he is. And then I learned, they were like, hey, sponsors, stay here, they'll find you. And I was like, cool, I'll stay in my spot. And he comes back to me, and lo and behold, he's 7 rows that way. And so I see him just, and then luckily that night I was wearing like a rainbow Pepsi shirt. And so I was like, I'm over here. And so he ran over to me, and we talked for a minute there. And I was like, well, what did they ask you, man? And he said, they asked me why I came up here. And I said, well, why did you come up there? Why did you go up there? And he said, and the only way to have a free life is in Jesus. I was like, oh, son, you getting it. You getting it, boy. And I said, well, what else? I said, well, what else? Like, what's going on? And he said, the only way to have forgiveness of sins is with Jesus. And then because I'm with Jesus, I can live with him forever. So we talked a little bit about John 17. We talked about eternal life, just beginning now in Jesus and then walking in that life with Jesus. And so what was awesome was seeing these kind of like fireworks kind of go off in his mind and have him be like, he even said at one point, he says, this is the most real, is what how he described it as well. This is the most real. And to see a 12-year-old experience that and experience Jesus and come to know Jesus, it was great to be able to see in action the things that we know, right? I know that we see it in action within community, but I know especially in a culture where we grow up in church, where we grow up in these things, it's not like we dumb it down a little bit. It's not as awe-inspiring. And then to look into the eyes of this student and for him to realize, for him to come to a place where he says, Jesus is better. This life is nothing. This life has nothing to offer me. Yeah, I can do this, that, and the other at school. Yeah, I can try to get this job and this job, whatever. But the only way to live free is in Jesus. There's plenty of people who say the only way to live free is to be American. That's all they want to say, right? There's plenty of people that will tag on the live free onto anything. I mean, live free or die hard, am I right? And so there's anybody that'll tag that on, but what he did was he said, you know what? Jesus is better. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. If you guys could turn with me to Hebrews 7, we're going to be talking specifically about how Jesus is the better high priest. Jesus is the better high priest. I wanted to be able to say the word priest a lot, so that's why we're going through this text. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a frame of reference as well with priests. Priests in the Old Testament, priests are the one who are from the tribe of Levi. Priests are the one who act as mediators for the people of Israel, between the people of Israel and God. They are the ones who intercede for the people of Israel and God, right? And so they are the ones who offer up the sacrifices. They are the one who accept the offerings, who accept the tithes, who accept these things. They are the ones who make the sacrifices for the people. They are the ones who make atonement for the sins of Israel. They are the ones who go into the Holy of Holies for the people of Israel. They are the means by which these people draw near to God. They are the means by which these people go essentially from point A to point B. These are the means by which these people draw near to knowing and understanding who God is. They are in the middle there, and they are the ones that are communicating between these two lines, right? The way that they get from point A to point B. So I traveled internationally for the first time this year. Who's ever traveled internationally? This whole front row right here. So that's cool, sweet, awesome, fingers in the air. So yeah, so this is my first time. This summer, or I guess this spring, because we were like, Hannah's a planner if you don't know. So like, Hannah the planner, that's how I remember it. That's how it works in my mind. And so we're like, okay, we're going to Belize in June. Okay, it's Thanksgiving. We got to go get our passports. Let's go do this. And so we're making sure like we got all of our ducks in a row. And I'm going to the passport place and I'm getting all this different paperwork and I'm learning how to take my picture, and they screw up my picture because my hair was too poofy that day and they didn't have it in enough of the inches. And so I had to take another picture at the post office and I get a refund. Anyway, it's a mess. And so I'm already like kind of freaking out about this. Like, I don't want to screw this up. And so we get the passport in, we get everything. We meet up with her family in the Dallas area and we're going through the airport. And I don't know about you guys, but as you're walking, like as you're going, may it be like on a trip in a bus or in a van or even in your own car, you're kind of replaying in your mind the things that you packed. And you're like, okay, so yeah, the chargers, yeah, okay, my chargers are in my backpack in the bottom pocket. Okay, cool, my socks are right there. Okay, and I'm kind of mentally going through my suitcase and my backpack, making sure everything is there. But now with this whole international thing, I'm also thinking like, what don't I have? Like, do I not have the things I'm not supposed to have? And do I have the things I'm supposed to have in the tiny bottles? So I'm like, okay, cool. So we have a Ziploc bag that I stuffed the tiniest body wash in. I got a big body. I hope that works for a week. Okay, so yeah, I got that in there. And okay, so I got my hair wash. Okay, yeah, that one smells good. Okay, I hope it doesn't break in my backpack. Okay, cool. So back to the suitcase. Got my socks, then my t-shirts, and did I pack a bomb? I'm like, but did I? No, okay, I didn't pack a bomb. That was my jeans. Okay, I put my jeans right there, and I put everything else right here. And then I'm thinking, well, what if I walked last night, and I emptied out all the clothes and just put only food in there? Because that's the biggest no-no on traveling internationally is food, right? And so I'm like, maybe I just filled it full of crackers and steaks. I have no idea. And so I'm like, well, I guess, so I'm peeking in there like, no, okay, it's just underwear. We're good. Okay, so, and then I'm walking up. And so we're going through all these checkout points, right? I'm filling out all these paperwork. We're doing all this thing. I'm making sure Hannah's over here. And I got her dad inside over here. And then Hannah's brother's kind of wandering around doing whatever. And I'm like, okay, we're everywhere we go. And then I see it. Then I see the customs line and I see the customs agent, right? And I'm like, that's who I got to impress. That's who I got to prove I'm not a terrorist to. But the whole time I'm like, I got this down. Like I'm doing everything as legally as possible. And so I'm thinking, as I'm walking up, I'm thinking, okay, I got to manipulate this person. I got to figure it out. But as we get up there, I'm realizing this person is here to help me, right? This person they don't want to try to they don't want to get everybody involved. They don't want me to get me arrested right there. They don't want to do everything. They just want to do their job, make sure everything's safe. They're not trying to bust me. They're not trying to find a fake bomb in my jeans, right? They're not trying to do that. What they're saying is, what they're trying to do is get me from point A to point B safely, right? What they're trying to do is to get me from one place to another. And I knew at that point, that's the gate where I'm going through. That's what we're doing. They're here to help me. And so I walk up to this woman, and she was the most chill, mama-like figure on the planet. She was like, hey, honey, how you doing? I was like, well, my wife's over there. Calm down, please. I'm traveling on vacation. She's like, you're going for pleasure? And I was like, yeah, we're going to vacation. She's like, where are you going? Belizean dreams, obviously. And she's like, oh, I hear that's nice this time of year. And I was like, yeah, it's great. And she looks around, she goes, do you have any of this? Looks at my check mark, stamps it, and says, you're good to go. I was like, yes. I faked her out. No, I'm just kidding. I was like, yes, she knows. And so at that point, she was proven to be the intercessor that I needed to be able to get from point A to point B, right? And so these priests, in a similar fashion, what they did was they worked as people. They worked as a way to help people draw near to God. Just as she helped me draw near to Belize, these people, these priests helped these Israelites draw near to God, right? Boom. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 7. We're going to begin right here. So we're jumping right in. We're jumping right into the book with this understanding that Jesus is the better high priest. He has already mentioned it 2 or 3 times, pointing to Jesus as the better high priest, right? And so we're starting off with that headline already. We got that locked in our brains. And so I don't want to read 1 through 6. I'm not Ryan, and plus I can't read that fast. And so what we're going to do is we're going to jump in right here in chapter 7, but we already have this understanding that the author of Hebrews is mentioning that Jesus is the better high priest, right? And he's already brought up this person, Melchizedek, and we're going to be talking about him starting in verse 1 right here. For this, Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High, who met Abraham as he was returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham apportioned a 10th part of all the spoils, was, first of all, by the translation of his name, the King of Righteousness, and also King of Salem, which means King of Peace, without father or mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God, he remains a priest perpetually. Let's pause right there. Whenever we hear the term King of Righteousness or King of Peace, is there someone that comes to mind? Is it Melchizedek? No, who is it, right? It's Jesus, right? I like that little soft mumble. It's the Jesus. It's that Jesus boy. It's Jesus, right? And so this language here, us in 2019 in San Angelo, Texas, we hear things like King of Righteousness. We hear things like King of Peace, and we think, boom, Jesus, right? And so what we're going to see with Melchizedek, what we're going to continue to see, let's lock it in our minds as well, that Melchizedek is this beautiful picture from Genesis 14 that is painted of the coming Messiah. And what we have here in Hebrews, as Jesus has already come, he is a picture of Jesus, right? He is a picture of Jesus. And what my friend here, the author of Hebrews, is doing is beginning to lay that out for us. And so he locks in King of Righteousness, he locks in King of Peace, and he locks in eternal nature. He became like the Son of God, being the priest perpetually, right? Let's continue in verse 4. Now observe how great this man was, to whom Abraham, the patriarch, gave a 10th of his choicest spoils. And those indeed of the sons of Levi who received the priest's office have commandment in the law to collect a 10th from the people, that is, from their brethren, although those are descended from Abraham. But the one whose genealogy was not traced from them collected a 10th from Abraham and blessed the one who had the promises. So let's pause right there. That's a lot of words. It's a lot of stuff. That's a lot going on. Let's kind of unpack that for a second. So what's going on here? Melchizedek is the priest to whom Abraham interacted with in Genesis, and he gave him up. He gave a 10th of everything that he had to Melchizedek. And so what he's saying here is that Melchizedek was a priest at which Abraham interacted with and gave an offering to, right? And Melchizedek was the one that led him into the land promised to them by God. And so what happens here, what he's talking about is this is Abraham and Melchizedek, right? But Melchizedek, I knew I would just goof up that pronunciation as much as possible. Melchizedek. Abraham and Melchizedek, is that before the law or after the law? If it's in Genesis, it is before the law. It's before the law. We out here whispering answers. But it's okay. I got these good ears. So that's before the law, right? So what he's doing is he's making this connection. He's showing this parallel between the interaction of Abraham and Melchizedek to the priests of Levi who are put into action by the law, right? By Moses. So we're going to hear language such as the order of Melchizedek and the order of Aaron, or the order of Levi. And so what this means is it's Melchizedek, which is before the law, outside of the law, and Levi or Aaron, which is in the law, right? So what he's saying here is, now observe how great this man was to Abraham, how great Melchizedek was to Abraham, who gave a tenth of the choicest spoils. Verse 5, and those indeed of the sons of Levi who received the priest's office had the commandment of the law to collect a tenth from their people. That is, from their brethren, from the Israelites, although these are descended from Abraham. The one whose genealogy is not traced from them collected a tenth from Abraham. Melchizedek, the one who is outside of this, collected a tenth from Abraham and blessed the one who had the promises. These promises of God were given to Abraham. Verse 7, but without any dispute, the lesser blessed the greater. And in this case, the mortal men received tithes. But in that case, one receives them, of whom it is witness that lives on. And so to speak, through Abraham, even Levi received tithes, paid tithes. Who received tithes, paid tithes, for he was still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. And so let's pause again. There's another lot of words. And so what he's saying here is he's already beginning to point out the fact that the order of Melchizedek is already greater than the order of Levi. And what he's saying there is this, which is crazy and insane to me, but I like it. It's a good part of the story. What he's saying there is, hey, Abraham paid tithes to Melchizedek, right? And Levi, who came later, the order of the priesthood by the law, they received the tithes from the people of Israel. But yet Levi, through his father Abraham, paid tithes to Melchizedek because he was in his father's loins. Right? I know. So basically what's going on there is he's saying the ones who received tithes have already paid tithes through to Melchizedek. So what he's saying is these ones who have received tithes, who you have elevated so highly, they too were the ones who paid tithes to this priest who is greater through their father Abraham. Is that starting to make sense? Is that starting to click? Cool. We got the nods. So let's pick up in verse 11 right here. So what this is doing is what this is leading through. Remember, we've already locked in Jesus is the better high priest, right? We've already got that in our mind. Jesus is the better high priest. And so what he's doing is he's already playing out that he's walking out that this isn't something that is crazy new, but rather these are pictures given to us from God pointing to Jesus, right? So he's laying that out and he's already saying, hey, guess what? The order of Melchizedek was already greater than the order of Levi. Why? Because Abraham, who was the father of Levi, gave and submitted to Melchizedek, right? Verse 11, now if perfection was through the Levitical priesthood, for on the basis of the people received the law. What further need was there for another priest to arise according to the order of Melchizedek and not be designated according to the order of Aaron? For when the priesthood changed, of necessity it takes place of a change also. For what the one concerning whom these things are spoken belongs to another tribe. Jesus belongs to another tribe, from whom no one has officiated the altar. Verse 14, for it is very evident that Jesus was descended from Judah, a tribe with reference to which Moses spoke nothing concerning the priests. Verse 15, and this is clearer still, that if another priest arises according in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become such not on the basis of the law of physical requirement, but according to the power of indestructible life, for it is attested of him, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. And so what we're doing here is, just like we said, Melchizedek is this beautiful picture of Jesus. What the author of Hebrews is doing is pointing to every detail, showing you how beautiful it is. Imagine if you had a friend come out to you and be like, hey man, you gotta see this sunrise. You gotta see this sunrise. Come out, come out, come out. And you get there and you're both like, oh. And he's like, he gets you cheek to cheek, right? But do you see the pinks? But do you see the oranges? It's really creepy. It's really weird. Why? I don't like that. But what the guy here in Hebrews is doing is he's pointing out every detail, saying, hey, guess what? You know how Melchizedek was outside the law? You know how Melchizedek was not from the tribe of Levi? Well, guess what? So is your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Therefore, he is the fulfillment of this beautiful picture shown in Melchizedek. Hey, you know what? You remember how Melchizedek, how he didn't have father or mother, how he was a priest perpetually? Guess what? So does your Savior, Jesus Christ. He too has an indestructible life. The way that we know he has an indestructible life is the fact that they tried to throw him in the grave and God said he could not be dead any longer. God rose him from that grave and he declared victory over the grave, right? Jesus' life tried to be destroyed, and he proved that he had indestructible life by leaving that grave empty, right? This beautiful picture of Jesus is painted in Melchizedek, and now we see the picture, we see the fulfillment of this in Jesus, right? So he's pointing out these details and saying, hey, the order of Melchizedek has this, guess what? Jesus has this too. The order of Melchizedek has that, oh, guess what? Jesus has that too. Jesus is the fulfillment of all of these things, as it says in verse 17, for it is attested of him, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Verse 18. For on the one hand, there is the setting aside of a former commandment because of its weakness and uselessness, for the law made nothing perfect. On the other hand, there is a bringing in of a better hope through which we draw near to God. And so what he's doing here is he's pointing out and showing how this flow has to happen. He's showing what has to happen next, right? He's showing the consequences, what is happening after all of this, right? What he's saying is, hey, because of this deep and beautiful reality, on the one hand, it pushes aside that which is now made useless and weak, right? Because of its weakness and uselessness. This is the same language that we see in 2 Corinthians as well, where Paul talks about the law, right? He talks about the law and he says in 2 Corinthians 3, he says, for indeed that what had glory, in this case has no glory because of the glory that surpasses it. What he's saying is, hey, that which came with glory, the law, that which came through God, yes, it had glory. Yes, it was given for a reason. Yes, it came from God. And so in itself, it is glorious. It is set apart. But that which has come is so much more glorious, that it outshines that so much that fades away. It says, for if that which fades away was with glory, that which remains has so much more glory. And so what he's proclaiming here is 2 Corinthians, and also here in Hebrews, he is saying this can be pushed aside because of its weakness. This can be pushed aside because of its uselessness. This can be pushed aside because it fades away. Yes, it came with glory, but that which comes with more glory, which far surpasses it and remains, pushes that aside, right? So that law is pushed aside because Jesus has fulfilled these things, right? These pictures painted of him in the Old Testament, these shadows that point to him in the Old Testament, he is now the fulfillment of these things, and he outshines all of them, being that which remains, right? The law and its weakness and uselessness has been pushed away, but has Jesus in weakness and uselessness ever been pushed away? No, he remains steadfast, he remains, and he endures through. At this point, he's making it clear in verse 19, on the other hand, there is a bringing of a better hope, which makes us draw near to God. And so it's funny too, when I approach different verses like this, it makes me contemplate different actions in life too, where there is something negative, just by definition, not necessarily by emotion, but just by definition, the fact of something being pushed away is in itself negative. I say no to this and yes to this, right? So there's a negative reaction. Our tendency a lot of the times, guess what? Well, I shouldn't say everybody in this room. Most people don't like change. Most people don't enjoy change. Most people don't like having to put themselves out of their comfort zone. And so a lot of times there's people that get caught up on this negative aspect of things. And so that's why he's showing this duality. He's saying, yeah, on the one hand, we're pushing this aside. And so it makes me think of like even like after high school when people are 17 and they're 18, there's this crazy pull in either direction where people have to say, yes, on the one hand, I leave my hometown. I leave everything I know. I leave everything that I thought I understood. And now I have to go into this other world. Now I've got to go to college, or now I've got to go to a job, or now I've got to go whatever. And now it's so different. I've graduated and things are completing. And what people want to do is they focus so much on this, whereas it's so much better to focus on what comes after. Same thing with Jesus on his last night on earth. He's telling his disciples, he's saying, listen, I'm going to die. And I'm going to leave that grave 3 days later. And man, these dudes, you're not going to die. No, you're not gonna die. Guess what? You're not gonna die. We're not gonna betray you. You're not going, Jesus, stop being so silly, man. You're not gonna die. Guys, it's better that I die, but you're not gonna die. But you're not gonna die. But guys, it's better that I die so that I can send the Holy Spirit. Guys, it's better that I die so you can understand forgiveness of sins. Guys, it's better that I die so that I can be with you always in a very different way, but in a very real way. They were so caught up on this negative side of pushing these things away, they didn't see what was being ushered in, right? The author of Hebrews says, yeah, on the one hand, weakness and uselessness was being pushed away, but on the other hand, there is the bringing in of a better hope, in as which we draw near to God. And inasmuch as it was without an oath, verse 20, verse 21, for they indeed became priests without an oath, but he with an oath through the one who said to him, the Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever. So much more also, Jesus has become the better guarantee of a better covenant, right? Jesus is the fulfillment of these things in the Old Testament, right? Jesus is the fulfillment of these things. We see these things paint these pictures. We see these things be a shadow of the glory that was to come with Jesus, right? So let's see. I feel like we in American culture, we've either seen war movies, we've either had friends or loved ones who've experienced being in the military and traveling, being away from family, or have experienced times of war, right? When I think of war movies, I generally think of things like Saving Private Ryan, or like Thin Red Line, sometimes Wind Talkers, if I'm feeling kind of crazy with Nicolas Cage. But there's usually a moment, right, where you as the audience begin to feel the grief and the stress of the wartime, right? Where it's not just violence, it's not just trying to maintain victory, it's not just trying to push further, but there's usually that moment, right? Either in the movie or when you're talking to your friends where it becomes real fast. Where they're telling this story, and I think about most of the movies, how it works is soldier gets back to camp, goes to his bunk, goes wherever he's staying, usually stands for a second, and breathes out, right? Thinks about what he's done, mud all over his face, probably some blood, thinking about everything that he's seen. And he slouches down, takes another breath. In this moment, like there's nothing being said. There's like a soft orchestral overtone. But you're feeling that weight, right? Bless you. And that's what you do to the person in the movie theater. You say, bless you, and then you move on and you feel the weight of what's going on. He takes his helmet off, puts it in his lap, and there's a picture of someone right inside that helmet, right? Usually it's a spouse or a loved one, right? Usually it's a spouse, girlfriend. I'm thinking like old time war movies. And so they see like this pinup looking girl, just a big 40s hair and stuff. Just one tear going through the mud and the blood. And you're like, that's his girl. He's away from home. He looks at that picture and then he kind of nods a little bit, wipes the tears out of his eyes, puts the picture back, puts his helmet back on, and goes back to where he needs to go. And you as the audience, you have this connection now with him of you want so badly for him to get back home and to see that girl, right? You want so badly for him to be able to see that girl in the picture. And you're thinking, in the end of this movie, he's either going to die or we're going to see this person in the picture. Well, we're probably going to see the person in the picture either way, but we want him to see her too, not in a grave, not in a casket. So we're rooting for this the entire time. It becomes no longer about the U.S. and victory. It becomes no longer about what we know about history, but it says we look at this soldier and we say, we need him to get home. And so every time we're in a battle, I see the next battle scene or the next intense scene, he's running and he hits his head on a tree and that picture goes flying and you're like, no, not the picture. And he grabs it and you see just that moment of adoration again of how this picture, he's got this picture. And so throughout the movie, as we're there with him throughout wartime, we see this picture as a point of adoration, right? We see this picture as one that he's driving towards, that he's fighting for, that he's going towards. And then we're getting closer to the end of the movie. Victory has taken place. He's lost some brothers along the way. We feel that weight, but we know what's awaiting us back home, right? So he gets home, he gets off the boat, he grabs his girl, and you're in the seat, and you're like, yeah, and you spill your popcorn, what's left of it. Mine's already all gone by then, but he's rooting, like you're like, yes, we got it, we're back. And then he goes home, and they enjoy each other, and then it goes to be time for bed. They go to sleep. He rolls over, opens the drawer to his nightstand, and pulls out that picture of her and just stares at it again, right? Right? He's so focused on that picture, right? Everybody know what I'm saying? No! That's the dumbest. His wife's right there. His girl's right there. Is he going to be looking at that picture every night? I hope not. That's when we reach to the screen and we slap that boy and we say, pay attention to your girl. The girl in the picture's right there. The author of Hebrews, he's saying, hey guys, the person in the picture's right there. What are you doing? You're running back to something that's stupid. This is worthless. This is dumb. That was always put into place to point to this one Jesus. And now you can be with this one Jesus and you keep turning back to that? What are you doing? This is so much better than the picture. So much better. We are now with Jesus. Continue with me in verse 23. The former priests, on the one hand, oh gosh, I love this verse so much. The former priests on one hand, he talks about hands a lot, existed in greater numbers because they were prevented by death from continuing. Let's pause there for a second. Actually, let's keep going. Verse 24. But Jesus, on the other hand, we got to talk about both hands. On the other hand, because he continues forever, holds his priesthood permanently. The former priests, we might be able to consider them greater because they had more of them. And the author of Hebrews pauses for a second. He says, because they kept dying. You know what? They would have kept their job if they hadn't kept on dying. They would have been able to keep doing their work if they weren't prevented by death. I love that he says prevented by death. It's like I think about whenever you're fired from a job and they're going, reason for termination. Well, they were prevented from death from continuing their job. That would never happen, right? So I love that so much because I have no idea if he's being over the top honest or just a little shade of sarcastic. And part of me really hopes for that little shade of sarcastic. I picture the author of Hebrews with a scribe in a room with a quill. And he's like, well, I guess you could consider them greater because of their numbers, because they kept dying. And he like nudges the guy and he's like, am I right? Jesus. So then he goes on his next one. He says, but on the other hand, because those guys kept dying, Jesus actually ends up being better because he continues forever and holds this priesthood permanently. Jesus is better because he's not prevented by death from continuing, right? We've already established that Jesus has an indestructible life, that he will not be held back by death. He will hold this priesthood permanently. He says in verse 25, therefore he is able to save those forever who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. It's not the fact that he has an indestructible life and is therefore
living outside of this priestly duty, but rather he is a priest forever, right? He always, that's a word that's so hard for us because we are so stricken by failure day in and day out in this world. And so being able to understand and look at Jesus as the one who always holds up this priesthood, he always lives to make intercession for his people. He always lives to make intercession for those who draw near to God through him. Verse 26, for it's fitting for us to have such a high priest, holy, innocent, undefiled, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens, who does not need daily, like those priests, to offer up sacrifices, first for his own sins, and then for the sins of the people, because he did this once for all when he offered himself up. For the law appoints men as high priests who are weak, but the word of the oath, which came after the law, appoints a son made perfect forever. It is so great that we have a priest who is holy, who is innocent, undefiled, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heaven. Earlier, it says that it is so good that we have a high priest who stepped down and partook in flesh and blood and walked alongside his brothers and sisters so that he might understand temptation and suffer alongside them. It is better that we have that high priest. It is better that we have a high priest who did not just go through the tabernacle of men, but went through the actual heavens that it represents. We have a better high priest in every single way. And he says it's so fitting that we have this high priest who does not have to offer up daily sacrifices, first for himself, because of his own sins. Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has no sins, lived the perfect life. He doesn't have to offer sacrifices for himself, nor does he daily have to offer sacrifices up for his people. Why? Because he offered up himself. The perfect priest offered the perfect sacrifices so we might understand what it means to be forgiven. We might understand what it means to be able to go before God. We might know what it means to have a mediator, an intercessor who is always for us and not against us, but drawing us near to God always, day in and day out. So, 3 years ago, I was working at All-American Chevrolet. And it was getting towards the fall. And Apple was releasing a new iPhone, right? And so, my friend Eli and I, we wash the cars day in and day out outside. What that means is I wear shorts, I have headphones, and a water gun. And I have a big tank of water. And I squirt these cars. Well, really it's like, but I get these cars going with the water. And my friend Eli follows me with a bucket and a mop. Man, we are like janitors for cars. We're doing this. And I rinse off some and he soaks some, and then I go back behind him and rinse off those ones he soaked, and then I go get some more prime for him, and I go back and forth. We had this method going on. Well, the day the iPhone was being announced, the iPhone 7 in 2016, we were so hyped. We were like, oh, we got to get on Twitter. We're going to follow this live tweet session. We're going to know every single thing that happens. So what that meant was I spray off a car and I drop my gun and I go over here and I say, pull up my phone. I say, oh, okay, it's going to have a bigger screen. And then I jump back and I spray it over here. It's going to have better colors. I go, oh, they're going to have rose gold. I still want black, but they're going to have rose gold. And then I'm telling off all these things, and then I go to my phone. I go, and they're not going to have a headphone jack. What? Eli goes, no way. Pulls out his phone, pulls up Twitter, and he's like, they're not gonna have a headphone jack? And they straight up acknowledged it in the keynote, and they said, because it's the future. What kind of nonsense answer is that? Hey, you can't have this because future. What? And those of us now, what they did was they forced us into a future they wanted. But anyway, we'll keep it in 2016. We'll keep it in 2016, right? So fast forward a few months, obviously I get the new iPhone. I'm up for an upgrade. I go get that new iPhone, and they give me this little dongle that I gotta use for my wired headphones, right? Anybody have any dongle issues? First of all, I love that that's the slang. We're the only ones right here who've ever had dongle issues. That's right. I love that the slang term dongle became the word that Apple actually ended up using. Everybody's like, it's a stupid little dongle, and Apple's like, well, it's already got a name. We should have named it first before they got to it. So I told Eli one day, I said, hey man, tonight I'm done with this dongle stuff. I gotta carry around my phone, I gotta carry around my tools, I gotta carry around my gloves, I gotta carry around this water gun. I don't want to carry around this dongle as well. I'm going to the store. I'm going to get some stuff. And he was like, okay. So I go and I started looking at these wireless headphones, right? I'm at Target, just by myself. And everybody's like, you need help, you need help, you need help. And I'm like, no, I got this. I know what I need. I need water resistance. I'm spraying a water gun. That's very powerful. I need water resistance. I need a long battery, right? I'm there for 8 hours a day in the sun. I need a long battery, and I need it to where it can just go around my neck. I don't really, this is pre-AirPods, and so there's still a wire, but it was wireless. And so I needed it to go around my neck comfortably and not fall down the back of my shirt where I'm having to like take off my uniform and in front of all my Chevy friends. So I find them, right? I find the pair. They're like light blue, come in this like hard plastic shell case, and I'm like, this is it. This is the pair. Water resistant, boom. 8 hours a day, boom, I'm ready. Let's go home, let's do this. Go home, I undo the little box right on my bed. I get everything out, I pull them apart, and I'm like, oh, the future, am I right? Put them right around my neck, I turn them on, and it starts up, and I wait, and I get it connected via my Bluetooth. I'm like, okay, cool. Put my phone in my pocket, and I'm like, okay, cool, listen to just music. I say, okay, this doesn't sound great, but this will get me through work. They were just like 40 bucks, no big deal. It's completely fine. Cool, nice, I'm set. I go to work the next day. I'm like, what's up, Eli? Look at this little necklace headphones I got. Toss them around, hook them up, getting ready, got this podcast going, get my water gun, start walking. As I'm walking, every step, my podcast is going, hey, what's up? And today we're gonna talk, and welcome back to the show. Every single step is cutting out, right? And I'm like, well, no. This isn't okay. So I'm doing like some dances in there, like figuring out like, okay, what is going on here with, is it my phone? Is it the actual thing? And I learn, okay, it's the contact my phone is making with my leg. Something with the antenna and the Bluetooth that's not working out. So I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'll just hold this open and walk around. Okay, well that works. That works just fine. I'll hold this open. Okay, so I'll hold this open and I'll get my water gun and we'll go. Right? And walk around spraying stuff. Oh, I can't do that. So then I find out that I can like develop this walk where I'm like, if I just bring my leg up like this, and it won't ever touch my leg because I'm wearing these baggy shorts, right? I'm like, okay, so it won't do that. I'm like, okay. And by lunchtime, 4 hours of this, I'm in it. My boss comes out and says, Pierce, you need to go home. How's your leg doing? Like, it's just these dumb headphones. And he was like, got a 7. I was like, yes, I got an iPhone 7. And so I turned to Eli and I'm, hey man, I'm going home to get my dongle and I'm gonna grab my headphones, and then tonight I'm gonna figure out something new for these headphones. And so I package them all back up, put them back in a little box, take them to Target, and I'm like, hey, these are just the worst. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. Do you want something else? I was like, no, I really want to keep these. I just want to let you know they really suck. No, of course I want something else. And so I go back to the back. And then by this point, well, I'll tell you that in a second. So going back to the aisles, I'm looking through the headphones, and then I see it. This end cap that I completely missed. Beats. At this point, I knew Apple had already bought Beats. And they had already worked out all those kinks, right? And they had the Beats X. Whew. They got magnets that keep them together. They hang down to here. They're water resistant. They got like a 10-hour battery life, featuring fast charge. So if I want to charge for 5 minutes on my lunch break, 15 minutes on my lunch break, boom, 3 more hours right there. So if I forget to charge the last day, I'm set, I'm golden. So I thought, you know what, these are $150. We're jumping from $40 to $150. I work at a car wash. So I said, I'm gonna bite this bullet, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna get these. So I show up the next day and my boy Eli, he's like, you got the Beats? I'm like, yeah, I got the Beats, man. Beats, we're gonna try out the Beats, and then if not, that girl at Target's gonna hate me because I'm gonna be back for round 2. So I get out of the car, and I'm like stretching my shorts out. I'm like, cool, you got enough room on my phone? Are we good? Are we ready to start this day? And I'm walking to the first car, and it's no losing connection. I'm like, okay, we're good. And I'm like, maybe I can bend my knee a little bit more coming up. I'm like, okay, we're still good, we're still flying. Then I start to spray off these tires. And then I realized by about 30 minutes in, I'm not even thinking about it anymore. It's completely smooth, it's completely seamless. You see, these Beats, These beats, every single place where those other stupid headphones failed, every single place where they disconnected, every single time they cut me off from my podcast, every single time I had to manipulate my legs and work my way out, every single failure, these stupid, I couldn't even tell you the brand name, right? Every single failure of these stupid headphones, these beats, knocked it out of the park. Wasn't even an issue. Wasn't even a problem, right? These beats got it covered. You see these dumb, stupid priests? I shouldn't say that. These okay priests, they kept on dying. They kept losing their job because they were dying. Guess what? Jesus didn't die. These priests, they failed according to the law, having to continually offer up sacrifices. Jesus did not fail and had to keep offering sacrifices. Jesus is the beat. Am I right? Oh, that's right. Jesus does not fail. And where, I can't even remember that stupid brand name, but I can tell you about the beats. The law faded away. Why? Because the glory of Jesus far surpassed the glory of the law. So why does this matter? Why do we even care? I said the word priest a lot. I talked about Levi and Melchizedek. There's a lot of words that I can guarantee you're probably not going to go out tomorrow and be like, hey guys, what's up? Welcome to work, Melchizedek. And just throw that word out there. That's probably not something you're going to do. So what does this mean for us, right? What's this mean as we move forward? I got another story for you. Remember at the beginning we talked about that U.S. Customs agent, my intercessor, my mediator. That was just one place, one time. Now this camp this past week, right? We talked about that. I've started meetings back in April. I went to a meeting, met a bunch of people from Oklahoma. They looked at me and said, okay, it's because of you that your kids can come to camp. And I said, yes, our students can come to camp. And they said, okay, because of you. Went back to another meeting at Glen Meadows. They said, hey, your students good for camp? I said, yeah, my students, they're coming with me. We're going to camp. A few weeks later, we had that parent meeting, right, at Glen Meadows. People come to me, hey, your students, they're good for camp? My students are good for camp. We wake up at 4 a.m. hating ourselves. Hey, your students good for camp? My students are good for camp. We get there. Every step of the way, from that point on the bus, really, if we rewind back to April, I'm going to each of these points. I'm hitting all these points, right? We get in the bus and say these kids are good for camp. These students are good for camp. We're getting on the bus. And then I get on the bus with them, right? We show up to camp. We pull up to our ginormous Bass Pro Shop cabin. And they say, hey, your kids good for camp? Yeah, these students, yeah, they're good for camp. Do I drop them off there? No, I go through that door with them, right? Hey, these students are good for these bunks? Yeah, they're good for these bunks. And then guys, you remember? No, we were good for these bunks and these bunks and these bunks and these bunks. It kept moving us like crazy. Yeah, we're good. We're good for these bunks. We go to the worship service. Show up that front door. We show our wristbands. Hey, these students good to be here? Yeah, these students are good to be here. And I go in there with worship to them. You see, the difference is between the customs agents and me is that customs agent was one place at one time, and yet for me, I continually, every single point of camp, made intercession, bringing in these students into this place, right, where they could be together, where they could be in camp. Jesus always holds his place, right? Jesus is always making intercession for us. These students weren't left to go fight their own battles at camp, right? You guys ever have to fight your own way into the worship center? No, right? You guys had to fight for your bunks. It felt like it, but we didn't really have to. You had someone saying, this guy should be here. These students should be here. What this world's gonna do, and by world, I mean things like actual people. I mean things like temptation. I mean things like your own self-doubt and pity. What this world is going to do is it's going to say you are not okay. You cannot draw near to the Father. You have to figure out things for yourself. You got to make things right. You got to be your own intercessor. You got to prove to God that you should be there. That's a bold-faced lie. Jesus accomplished these things. Jesus offered himself up once and for all. Jesus conquered the grave. Jesus has an indestructible life. Jesus didn't follow after the order of the law, which is now made weak and useless, but he followed after the order of Melchizedek, the picture painted of himself. And he fulfilled that picture, and now he lives to always make intercession for his people. We always have Jesus. May it be here when we worship together in this building. May it be when we go to our jobs. Maybe when we go to ASU or Howard. Whenever we're at the Air Force Base. Whenever we go out to Dove Creek. Jesus is still Jesus. He remains. He endures. And we are his people. And we point this world to a priest that will remain forever, always fighting for them, making intercession for them, and mediating them, bringing them to God and saying, hey, these are my brothers and sisters. They belong here. Father God, I thank you tremendously for sending your Son, Jesus Christ. I thank you that you are the high priest who remains forever. I praise you that we can put the word better on you in every circumstance. We can proclaim proudly, honestly, and openly that Jesus is better. As a priest, Jesus is better. Why? He didn't die. He conquered death, and he's outside of weakness. Jesus remains strong, firm, victorious, and makes intercession for his people. He loves us. And God, we thank you for that we can proclaim that love, that we can feel that love, that we can experience that love through you, through your Son, Jesus Christ, and through the family that you have made here for us, our brothers and sisters in you. So Jesus, remain as you promised that you do. May we always have a mindset knowing and understanding and just enjoying your eternal state. Enjoying that you live always to make intercessions for us. We love you. We praise you. It's in your name that I pray. Amen.